You ever sit down and start working on a homework assignment thinking, yeah, I can probably bang this one out pretty quickly, only to find out that after you've sat down, you don't have any paper, your printer's out of ink, and the computer's on fire? That's kind of how it felt like putting this video together. Mind you, I knew that it was going to be pretty painful running this course on 150cc because, well, it's pretty painful running this course on 200cc, but little did I know, however, just how difficult this course would be. Welcome to part 6 of Basic Training, where we're going to cover everything you need to know about Toad Harbor on 150cc. As always, we're going to cover the recommended builds, mushroom strats, and other advanced tips and tricks to help you start mastering the course. We're also going to cover alternate strategies that you can use in place of some of the more complicated parts of the track, as well as shroomless strategies which are going to be more generally applicable to online races. The YouTube algorithm has been good to me lately, and I'd really appreciate if you could all keep doing what you're doing to help these videos get more exposure. So as always, if you find the content useful or informative, please don't forget to drop a like and a comment to let me know. Also, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can be informed the moment these videos drop, since I'm going to be uploading a new tutorial every week. With all that out of the way, let's dive into Toad Harbor. The build that I recommend for Toad Harbor is our usual try-hard build of Waluigi, Bitty Buggy, Azure Rollers, and Paper Glider. This build has a ground speed of 3, an acceleration of 4.75, and a mini turbo of 4.75. So as we can see, this build prioritizes building up mini turbos over ground speed. Now, Toad Harbor is actually a course that doesn't have a lot of little twists and turns in it, so we're going to have to actually create some of these opportunities for ourselves. What do I mean by that? Well, let's take a look at the track. We start here by getting a startup boost and hanging a very slight right. Then we build up a mini turbo, wait until we get to the little dirt barrier between the track and the grass, and hop over the grass on the outside of the box. You can cut the inside of the box too, but it's a bit more of a pain to do properly, so we'll get into that later. I've found that once you get a good angle going into the cut here, that it's helpful to try and neutral drift before the grass. Immediately after the grass cut, we're going to need to start getting set up for the next strat, and be prepared because it's pretty complicated. What you want to do is drive up to the orange boost ramp here. Now rather than trick off both of these ramps, you want to do a right hop and land on top of the first orange boost ramp. Keep holding the drift button along with right on the joystick to charge a mini turbo in midair. Now the next step looks simple enough. When you land, release the mini turbo and trick off the ramp. And then when you land back on the track, do a left hop to realign yourself before starting a right drift. What's actually going on under the hood here is quite a bit more complicated than this. You can check JP's video that I've linked at the top for you, but basically, the optimal strategy here is to start holding left on the joystick when you land. Keep holding down left until you get to the ramp, at which point you want to start holding right before you trick off the ramp. So, what's going on here? Well, first of all, you want to do the mini turbo trick strategy instead of tricking off both of the orange ramps for a couple of reasons. First, the straightaway leading up to the second ramp is pretty small, and the trick boost will end up being partially cannibalized by the second orange boost ramp here, so you don't actually have enough time to really take full advantage of that trick boost. Second, tricking off a boost ramp with a mini turbo is significantly faster than tricking off the ramp without the mini turbo. Now what about switching between the wide and tight drift angles at the ramp? Well, basically, this causes you to get launched further in the direction of the tight drift angle, so taken together, not having a cannibalized trick boost, replacing it with a faster trick boost via the mini turbo trick, and getting a further launch from switching between wide and tight drift angles makes this strat much better than the double trick boost strategy. It's important to point out though that even if you don't want to do the wide and tight drift angle stuff, the mini turbo trick strategy is still faster than the double ramp trick. Okay, so we've officially gotten through the first 8 or so seconds in the run. Only 122 more to go. The rest of the course actually isn't really that bad. Like I said, once you land, you want to do a counter hop to the left before starting your right drift. This is mostly for alignment purposes. And try not to miss the coin like I did here. So you're going to want to build up an ultra mini turbo around the barrel turn. In order to do so, you're going to have to take a hard right turn for just a little bit around the first barrel. Try to stay as close to the wall as possible, and you should be able to build up an ultra mini turbo right around when you grab the coin. Now once you grab the coin, start a drift up the ramp on the right hand side of the track here. You'll have just enough time to comfortably build up a super mini turbo before getting up to the ramp. And once you get to the ramp, just like before, you don't want to trick off it. What you actually want to do is hop slightly before you get to the ramp so that you can land on top of it. Keep holding down the drift button and right on the joystick while you do this to start doing another mid-air mini turbo charge. Then when you land, keep up with the drift until you build up a super mini turbo. Couple things to point out about this strategy. As far as I can tell, there are two reasons we want to drift off this ramp instead of trick. The first is that it allows you to get a much better line when going into the next turn here. The problem is that if you trick, you've got much less room to navigate the next turn, and more likely than not, you're going to end up bonking into the wall. Drifting off the ramp allows you to basically take a really tight inside line for the entire turn, which is much faster. Second, if you do the trick, you'll only really be able to build up a mini turbo on the next drift, whereas when drifting off the ramp, you'll actually be able to build up the super mini turbo. Okay, so once we've done that, we've got to do a couple of unintuitive things here. First of all, after you release your super mini turbo, wait until you get to about the end of the shortcut path and then start a left drift. You'll have enough time to build up a mini turbo, but then when you release it, you want to do 2 right hops because you're going to start another left drift to build up a second mini turbo. And if you don't do the hops, you're going to face plant into the wall. Ask me how I know. After building up the second mini turbo, do 1 final right hop for alignment purposes before starting the wide turn here in the trolley section. So this is a lot of stuff to keep track of. So let's just take a step back and look at everything from the alternate path shortcut through the second mini turbo. Starting off, we hop and drift off the orange boost ramp to do a mid-air mini turbo charge. When we land, keep holding the drift button to build up a super mini turbo, release and do a left drift at the end of the path to build up a mini turbo. Release that and do 2 alignment hops to the right before doing a second left drift. Then build up your second mini turbo, release, and do a final alignment hop to the right. The last real difficult part of the lap is grabbing the coins behind this trolley. Once you start approaching it, hold left on the joystick to widen your drift angle a little bit. Then, right around when you're grabbing the second coin, start holding a hard right on the joystick. This should cause you to grab the third coin and just barely miss the trolley. Once you grab the coins, you can finish up this turn by building up an ultra mini turbo. It's more or less smooth sailing from here on out. All you have to do here is trick off the first 2 little ramps here and then trick off the orange boost ramp. Make sure that after you've tricked off the first ramp that you're angled in such a way that you can grab the coin on the second ramp while still turning slightly left. The other thing to point out is that when you trick off the ramp, you want to try and land in such a way that you can grab the last 2 coins. Once you've done that, use your first mushroom to cut the grass and build up a mini turbo to finish the lap. Laps 2 and 3 play similarly to lap 1, with only really 2 minor changes. The first is that since we don't need to grab any coins anymore, when we get to the trolley turn, the strategy is just to hug it as tightly as possible. You'll have to wiggle drift a bit here to build up an ultra mini turbo, but it will save time. The other difference between lap 1 and laps 2 and 3 is that when you land after tricking off the orange boost ramp, you want to land in a drift so that you can build up a mini turbo before getting to the mushroom cut. So let's see how all this looks in a full run. Now, there are quite a few major differences in how I run the track versus how the world record runs the track. So let's take a quick look at the world record ghost. Right off the bat, you'll notice that the world record hits the first grass cut differently. They cut the inside of the box as opposed to the outside. I alluded to this earlier, but the way to do this is by basically taking a wide angle when approaching the shortcut while aiming for like the corner of the box. Neutral hop to clear the grass. It's not super hard to learn or execute, but it's inconsistent enough that I didn't want to risk going for it given how difficult the rest of the course is to run. The next difference is that in the alternate path shortcut, they build up an ultra mini turbo before the ramp. Though this does save a pretty significant amount of time, it's really difficult to do. So just stick with the super mini turbo. The next difference is at the orange boost ramp after the trolley section. The way that I did the strat was just by tricking off the ramp. What the world record does is drift off the side of the ramp, build up a mini turbo, land on top of the trolley, and then do a super bounce off the top. Now it's important to point out that even just tricking off the trolley is faster than my strat, but this stuff is all kind of dependent on making sure that you get to this section at just the right time. This is because the trolleys here operate on a global cycle, meaning that they'll be in the same place at the same time every time you run the track. So if you're even slightly slower, then it becomes much more difficult to time the strat properly. The last real difference is that after the mushroom section, the world record builds up a super mini turbo instead of a regular mini turbo. Again, it's not hard to do this strat, but it is harder to do so in a way that actually saves time. Now let's take a look at some alternate strategies you can use here. First of all, instead of trying to cut the grass, you can just drift around it like so. In fact, the current 150cc, no item 48 track world record run on speedrun.com doesn't attempt to cut the grass at all here, because of how inconsistent it is. For the double orange ramp section here, you can just trick off of both of them and try and align yourself for the barrel turn, but I really suggest you try and learn the mini turbo trick strategy. It's not that difficult to learn, it looks cool, and it saves a bunch of time, so what's not to love? The next thing you can do if the weird counter hop stuff is too annoying to learn is after getting the super mini turbo in the alternate path shortcut, just release and drift around the wide trolley turn like usual. Speaking of which, collecting the coins in the way that I showed you earlier is pretty annoying, and I lost about 80% of my attempts on this track just running into the trolley there. So what you can do instead is just grab the coins while drifting around the left-hand side of the trolley. You probably won't be able to grab all 3 coins, but you can make up for that easily enough in later parts of the track. Some other things to keep in mind if you're racing this course online is that if you take the alternate path shortcut, you'll only get 1 item box, whereas if you take the normal path, you can actually get a double item box. Therefore, there can be many situations where it's better to take the lower path and grab the items than it is to save the extra few tenths of a second or so that you'll save by taking the alternate path. This is especially true if you're in first place and you have no defensive items. Oh, and by the way, dropping a bomb or other offensive item behind you in this alternate path is a totally evil maneuver that's guaranteed to piss some people off. Another mistake I see a lot when playing online is people taking the anti-grav path. Now while it can be safer for sure, it's crazy slow because of how awful the line is that you have to take. Ditto for the little secret path at the end of the track. Yes, there are boost pads, but you have to go far enough out of your way to grab them that it just ends up not being worth it. And that's everything you need to know about Toad Harbor on 150cc. I hope that you all enjoyed the video and found it useful. As always, don't forget to drop a like and a comment to let me know what you thought about the video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you very much for watching.